Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, the distinguished Mr. Steve Cook.
Morning, David. I'm excited about this one today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Let's crank it up.
So today we thought we'd talk about, I think it's a little bit critical decision making. It's a little bit know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. But I think it's all about change, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I was prepping for today's session, and as I always do, I either turn to articles or books or things to try and inspire a topic that I think is one that is necessary to talk about in the entrepreneurial space. And I came across this what's called the dead horse theory. And in simple, when the horse is dead, get a different horse, or get off the horse, or let the horse go.
It says your best strategy is to dismount.
Yeah.
So it's like before you get on a new horse, let's get off the dead one. And I like it's almost so simplistic that it makes you feel foolish that anybody would have to say that. But
until you're a business owner. Yeah.
So in the sports business, we literally run programs to death.
Yeah.
And then keep riding them and expecting, well, it's going to come back. It's going to do this. What's going to rebound? And during the pandemic, I got very frustrated because I kept hearing about the new normal and when are we going to get back, get to the new normal. And although I was frustrated at the time, I see the logic in saying, okay, what's new might not be normal to us. Maybe we're never going to get back to what we did before. So constantly changing what we do. I'll give one quick story and then I'll let you pontificate. But when I bought Grand Slam, the advice I got from the former owner is come up with one major change every other year. And I thought, well, why do that? Mm-hmm. And now as I've seen it develop, it is kind of what we do. Every other year, there's something major that's happening in the industry, in the marketplace, in our geography that forces us. And if you're not aware, then you don't change and you keep, sometimes it's not smart to have your head down just running forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a balancing act and a flexibility necessary in entrepreneurship, right? The balancing act of staying true to your vision and the flexibility to understand sometimes the way you're doing it is not the way that you need to do it. And the simplicity of the dead horse theory, I think, is the best. And it was an old Dakota Indian, hand down from generation to generation, basically just says, when you find you're riding a dead horse, the best strategy is to dismount. And the little clip goes on, and I'll get this online. I took it from online, so I can certainly give it back to online. It says, however, in modern business, education, government, a whole range of far more advanced strategies are often employed. And obviously,
these are great.
The advanced strategies are a play on words, but number one strategy is buy a stronger whip, right? So let's put it in context. You have a marketing program. You have a class that is dying, right? Or it's not returning anything. And instead, let's send out 50,000 more mailers, or let's book time for 3 more classes. Maybe it's the scheduling and you're not realizing, hey, that thing's just dead and gone. So you buy a stronger whip. Second is you change the rider. Well, the horse is still dead, so now you just got a new rider.
Yeah, so it's not, sometimes, we tend to blame it on our coach and, so if let's say retention is the problem. And we have this discussion frequently, with our clients about turnover. And if you can, if you did nothing else with your business, but extended everybody's tenure within your business by a year, that would have such huge dramatic effects on your business. But sometimes if you don't change it, it's change that you need to get retention.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think we tend to say, oh, we need a new coach or a new curriculum.
And that's the threatening the horse with termination, right?
Yeah.
I love the next one. I think is probably the biggest corporate issue, and don't be subject to this, but appointing a committee to study the horse, right? Let's have a meeting about this thing to try and figure out what the real problem is. And you're hanging on to something. And the reason I think this is so absolutely imperative for entrepreneurs is because a lot of your heart and soul goes into your business. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's very hard to say, well, shoot, that's not working anymore. This is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Steve.
Oh God, how many times have we said that?
It's the worst phrase in business.
The other thing that we do, and it may be in one of the answers, but it's we kind of ignore it. We kind of know we're having a problem with that, but it's a trend. It's just happening this year. It's just happening this season. It's going to get better. They've lost their enthusiasm, so we ignore it. And maybe that's okay if it's happening for a month or 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's extended, then there's another problem, and you have to do something more than these obvious things with the. Sometimes you have to accept that the horse is dying before, notice the ill effects of a dying horse. Is that in here?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, listen, these are all sarcastic ones. These are what modern business, education, government have done to try and solve a problem when really what they just need to do is dismount.
I'm good with sarcasm.
You like that?
Yeah, I
like
really
it.
am good with sarcasm.
I just didn't know if you were following through on either.
Yeah, no. I think I've made all these mistakes. So.
I think everybody has in some fashion or another if you're an entrepreneur. Arranging to visit other countries to see how others ride dead horses.
And that would be other business. In our business, it was, what are they doing over there at the other baseball academy? What are they doing at the, so-and-so dance school, that we can copy from them.
Lowering the standards so that dead horses can be included. Reclassify the dead horse as living impaired. Hiring outside contractors to ride the dead horse, right? So again, all of these, and you can take the play on words in these statements as to people, to processes, to technologies, to marketing, right? Really any facet of business that's just not working. And sometimes you can make corrective action and change it, right? But when the core to this is understanding when it's dead. Right? Mm-hmm. Understanding that it is no longer a viable pathway. Stop trying to force a square peg into a round hole. We can cliche it all day long. The idea here is you have to have your finger on the pulse of the dead horse, right? I mean, you gotta know that the heart's not breathing anymore.
And it's purposeful quitting. There's times when you just have to quit. I was just listening to, you'll get a kick out of this. I was listening to a podcast on the biggest mistake that Coca-Cola ever made. And some can argue it, but it's what they're discussing is New Coke. And I don't know if you go back and you remember New Coke. Actually, at one point, I think it was in the 80s, Coca-Cola replaced the formula for their Coke and they called it New Coke because they were losing market share to Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
The consumer didn't accept it.
Yep.
They hollered, but most importantly, they didn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was introduced in April, New Coke. And by July, the CEO of Coca-Cola said, okay, the consumer wins. And they brought back the original. And that's when it got rebranded Classic Coke. And that's what we have today. But that was an instance where it was under 6 months before they accepted and said, okay, this doesn't work. And sometimes I think we're not on top of what we're doing, evaluating it. And you really need to evaluate from the very beginning. So sometimes, it's one thing to say, okay, this kind of started dying back in, 2010, and we're going to get rid of it now. But you have to make that change, sooner. But if you're not paying attention, you're not keeping score. That's why a scorecard on everything is something that I profess.
Yeah, and that's tough too. It's not always easy, right? Because here's and again, dead horse, you could be tracking the wrong thing, right? I mean, you're looking at the wrong things. And I always tell people analysis paralysis happens when you're analyzing the wrong data, right? And we can spend an awful lot of time analyzing data that doesn't change the outcome. Make sure that you're tracking and recording the most important things and making decisions based on the most important outcomes.
Which can be, an indicator in itself. And you can set up a KPI. I don't know if anybody does this, but let's say you're going to run a KPI based on the number of positive response you get to a specific question, one question. Mm-hmm. And then you do a one question survey. It's amazing. People say, I can't get people to respond to a survey. It's because it's too long.
Yep.
So if you make a one survey question and that is your KPI, it's, on a scale of, 1 to 10, what does your child think of class? Bingo. That's the only question. Yep. It's a 5. Boom. And so you can track that and you can see if you're going to send that survey out once every semester or once a year, once a month, not once a month, but enough that you have some kind of reaction so that before the revenue starts dropping, you can see the enjoyment factor is dropping and okay, maybe that's what we have to adjust. So I think there are effective KPIs for pretty much everything. You just got to get to them and they can't be cumbersome. And you shouldn't have KPIs that you're doing to make yourself look good.
Yeah, no.
So, and I think that's a problem.
Well, and that goes back to the episode we did, Steve, on answering to your business, right? You have to be honest and really answer to the business. One of the things, I think we titled it, Taking Your Business Seriously. Mm-hmm. But if you truly want to be an entrepreneur and not self-employed, right? If you truly want to be an entrepreneur, you and everyone else in your organization has to answer to the business. And when you're setting up a KPI and you're looking at, you have to be willing to ask the question that you may not like the response to, right? And I think that is nobody necessarily likes the negative feedback. I think you should. That's the biggest learning you can do, right? Because you get complacent whenever all the feedback is very good.
Do you want your business to thrive? Visit us at paradigmplaybook.com and contact us today for expert assistance.
Well, I think as an employee, you don't like negative feedback. As an entrepreneur, you need negative feedback because that's the only thing you're going to grow from. So, a lot of the same things come up in multiple podcasts where we've talked about taking the time to work on your business and, kind of getting out of your business. You have to work a little bit less in your business to work on your business. And when you're working on your business, a big part of that is, okay, what's the next change? Where am I going to change this? Which horse is dying out there and I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about a system. It's
a process, a methodology, it can be anything in that arena. It's not people.
My one of the guys I listen to all the time, Patrick Bet-David, who started a very large insurance company. He did a deep dive into how they were processing insurance applications and ended up spending a lot of money, but in the end grew the business exponentially because he bought back time for his sales team, his customer service team, by changing the process. So, and I think that as an entrepreneur, that's what you're looking for. So in his case, the dying horse was a process, like you're saying, in the middle of it, how they were processing these applications. And so, I was working with a local gymnastic club, this was, and we got talking about how they process the kids through the business. And they kept saying, well, we're at max capacity. And I said, I've got to really question that because, every business we do it, you bring the kids in, they warm up here, then they move over here and they're in stations. Well, once they move into stations, is that warm up area open? So why do we wait till they're done their stations to start the next warm up? Why aren't these the overlapping classes? And that's just one little thing of doing, but that's where a system was dying in that club, and we had to figure out a way not to strap on another dead horse, but to change it.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. I have no idea who said it, but I think it was JCPenney. Ironically enough, JCPenney didn't change well enough and is now bankrupt and out of business. But change is vital, and improvement is the logical form of change, right? So in all of...
Say it again now. Just
change is vital, and improvement is the logical form of change, right? So as you're going through, we're sort of tying dead horses to KPIs and all that, and business ownership, but
it's all about change. So
Correct.
You're on the right topic.
So what happens in business, or at least in my experience, Stephen, I'll let you share yours. If I'm not changing or improving, right? Well, if I'm not changing, which in my eyes is improving, right? Change is always improvement to me because I'm attacking some either gap or blind spot that I need to fill or solve. And I'm at least making progress towards the end solution. It may not be the right solution. It may not be the finalized one, but I'm making progress. And to me, progress and change are motivating and inspiring in their own right. And so if you're not improving and you're not making change, you can get stagnant. And stagnant is a very, very, very difficult place to climb out of in business, right? So to me, when I'm having a bad day, week, month, whatever it is in business, my RSF, relentless solution focus, comes in. I'm like, all right, well, why am I in this funk, or why is this happening? What am I going to change? What am I going to change about it? Whether it's a personal change, whether it's a time change, whether it's a process change, it's some improvement to a piece of the business that gets me back on track. And some brain work that I have to do, or some, you talk about the entrepreneur working on the business, something I have to work on the business on and go to my, thinking chair, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where I'm sitting down and I'm actually critically thinking about what that change needs to be, and I'm implementing and being the catalyst behind it. And so then that snowballs, right?
So by constantly looking for small changes, I think it was Edison that said that he, never had a failure. He discovered hundreds of ways not to make a light bulb. Yeah. So, it's the same thing, that you have to try things. And that's where we as entrepreneurs have a huge advantage over corporate America, because they can't walk in the morning and decide to make a change. They have levels of approval they have to go through. And I lived through that. And when you go into that and you have an entrepreneurial mindset, it is very difficult. It's very frustrating, but
stifling.
In our world, we can go in and make a decision on the spot, and say, okay, let's
pivot.
Yeah, we don't start classes till 4:00 every day. Okay, well, who says we can't start at 3:45? You know what? Next semester, let's start 3:45. So we can make that decision. We don't have to do a study. We don't have to do anything. And now if that class doesn't fill up and we're halfway through the registration period, we can pivot again and go back and say, okay, well, 4:00 was right. But if we didn't try that, that's one way to not make a light bulb that we hadn't figured out yet.
Yeah. And if you think that the ideas and the change are important, right? I would argue when you go to innovative companies, they spend an incredible amount of money on research and development, right? An incredible amount of money. And for every idea that actually hits, they've probably got 100 that failed and didn't make it or didn't get out of the sandbox or didn't get out of the working on it room. But that's an expense of innovation, right?
Yeah, and if you don't reach for something that seems impossible, then you aren't really an innovator. I mean, it has to, the Edisons or the Steve Jobs of the world. What was his called? The reality distortion field that he lived in. They always teased about, they come in, and when he first said, I want to control the cursor on the screen with an object that's not connected to the computer at all. And, it's like, it almost sounds ridiculous. And now we all have wireless mouse that we use, every day, all the time. And it's because someone had the nerve to think beyond that. So we do that, it's like, and I do it with my coaches in a baseball lesson. And they tell me, the most kids I can have in a class at a time is 6. And I get it. That's what they're used to. That's what they're comfortable with. But there's another way to do it with 8. There's another way to do it. So when I was
I used to do it with 15, Steve.
And I was a physical education teacher. I had 30 kids in the class. So this is it. So that
is. Hold on a minute. Hold on. What horse is that?
Okay, that's it. That's
the. Let's make the lower the standard so that the dead horse can be included.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was trying to get to before you so rudely interrupted
I apologize.
me is that you have to be willing to look at the way you do things. And these are discussions that you have to have, or you drop into this level of, it's comfortable sitting on this horse. I know I'm not going anywhere, but at least it's a comfortable seat.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, I love the idea of the dead horse theory, just because it really makes you think about, what is teetering in your business right now. And I think that's something that we all have to be looking as an entrepreneur. Don't expect to get that from your employees. You have to pick that up on your own and start driving that.
Yeah, without question. And I will tell you, as soon as I came across it, Steve, I was instantly like, it wasn't just, hey, let's talk about this. My thought and theory immediately was right to, what dead horses do I have?
Yeah.
Like what things do I need to be looking at that I haven't looked at in a while? Or what have I lost sight of or focus on that really isn't working? And today, within 30 seconds of being in this office, I went upstairs to the market team. I said, we need to rewrite the flyer that we use to generate seminar activity. And we need to lean into the confusion that has been created right now. And we need to attack 2 specific categories of people that our general generic flyer was just kind of, it gets them, but we're not using what's at our disposal to improve it. And so, I don't want to say it was a dead horse. It was a horse that was limping along, needs a little bit of rehab, and it'll be back on the road in no time. Which is also, you got to recognize that. Is it really dead, or is it something that is just it wandered down? I'll use.
But either way, you got to take the pulse.
Correct, 100%, right, 100%. And I love the analogy of, if you're on a ship and you're sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, I don't know, it's 6,000 miles or something, right, to get to the next continent, Europe or Africa. And you are zeroing in on a particular destination, and you set the autopilot when you leave, New York or Philadelphia or Atlanta or whatever coastal town you're running out of, and you're off 1 degree at the beginning. How far off will you be after you've traveled that distance? What's the delta in where you'll be? You could be aiming for England and end up in Mozambique or Sudan or whatever. I don't know all the coastal countries there, but that's a big understanding too. So make sure that as you set your bearings and you're moving forward, that you have your eyes on that prize. And if you start to get a little bit off, pull it back.
There was a great story in Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, where he talks about, I'm not sure it's in his book or in one of his TED Talks, but Simon said it.
Simon says.
Yeah. That they were studying, there was a thing called the Black Death of childbed, and it was the number of children that were dying or right after birth. And, you know, they kept studying it and doing all these tests. And then one person came up and said to the doctors, the doctors were doing autopsies in the morning, delivering babies in the afternoon, and they're wondering why the children were dying, right after birth. And he came up and said, I think you need to wash your hands after you do the autopsies before you do. And this is way back when, sanitation wasn't what it is today and all that. The point of the story is that what they weren't focusing on is that the problem was them. And that's sometimes we overanalyze our businesses, and sometimes the problem is us.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the way we establish it. Sometimes we're getting exactly what we asked for. We just asked the wrong question.
100%. I think that's a little mic drop for the end of the show here.
Yeah.
So anyway, change is vital. Improvement is a logical form of change. Don't ride a dead horse, and make sure that you know if it's a dead horse or not.
And if you want Dave's little quip or a connection to it or a PDF of it, we'll gladly sign. Just reach out to us at Paradigm Playbook, and we'll get it to you.
All right, everybody. That's the show for today. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. As always, hope you have a fantastic week and happy entrepreneuring.
Okay, everybody, make it a great day.
Looking for small business consulting? Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to book a session with us.